Hey, welcome back. It's Tony Ortiz here, and this is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and I'm back with another episode of the tutorial series. And we're going to go through a few of the basic things in this tutorial episode. We're going to talk about like the castle, like getting familiar with it, the size of it. We're going to talk about some of the RPG style mechanics and stats, and just like normal breakdown stuff that you would probably want to know if you are very unfamiliar with this type of game. And so if you're already familiar with that kind of stuff, as I said in episode 1, you can just skip along onto the next episode and jump in where you think the knowledge is going to benefit you the most. So I'm here in the randomizer menu, but I'm actually going to back out. I'm going to go into my regular playthrough because that's going to make it a little bit easier for me to show you the whole castle and kind of like what we have going on there. Okay, so this is the size of the whole castle. I'm just hitting the map button here, and you can kind of see like it's pretty big. You can use the control stick to move this around and kind of like if you get stuck or lost. And a lot of these rooms can be hidden. They won't necessarily show up. They might be behind breakable walls or whatever. Very, very Symphony of the Night-esque. Again, this is the spiritual successor to that game. So, and then the greens are the warp rooms and the reds are the save rooms. And you can kind of see like the darkened areas. Those are like specific like gated areas. Like that there's you notice how there's no kind of like designator on like what they are specifically, and like this one here does not have a link to the rest. That's because this stuff on the side here you actually have to teleport to via something else in this area. I don't want to spoil it for you, but there are some stuff here. And after this video, it will get spoiler heavy, so I will go ahead and talk about that when we do the other video. So, but you can watch up through this one here to really know a little bit more about the game, what you need to do before you even play it. And we're just going to go through the UI interface real quick, kind of give you an idea of what's going on. There is a map button. There is the pause menu, of course. You have your attack, your jump, your backdash, your conjure shard button, which is going to be the red shard conjure. You have your manipulative shard button, which is going to be the blue shard button. Then you're going to have your, you can use the left stick to move, or you can use the D-pad. And a lot of times you're going to use the up motion here to like save, open chests, talk to NPCs, stuff like that. You're going to have your right stick, which you can notice Miriam's arm here. Like I'm doing like a 360 and her arm kind of shows you that little trail of bubbles. That is your aiming, your directional shard. So this is, I have like a darkness beam here that I can do in 360 degrees and so on. All right. And then you have the backdash button. So this button's important. It's kind of like an evasive maneuver. You can go back. A lot of the stuff is cancelable. We'll talk more about that in the movement and the actual specific, tutorial for those kind of things. But that's just kind of like how you get familiar with the buttons there. And, you have your pause menu again. We'll go through all of this. You have your equipment. This is the stuff that you can equip. You have your shards. So enemies in this game will have a small percentage. Some bosses are guaranteed to drop a shard, and that shard is kind of like a soul if you're familiar with the GBA Vanias and DS Vanias that have those in them. There's 6 different types. There's the skill ones, which are white. They have some kind of movement ability or quality of life ability attached to them. You can actually turn them on and off with this little menu over here. We have the reds, as I mentioned, Conjure. This is just like the traditional magic spell. So you press the button once, you lose this much MP from your MP meter, and you get the effect. Blue, basically the exact same thing, except these are a little bit more focused. Some of these can be held down. You can see there's an MP cost per second in the bottom right corner. Pretty simple, but they have like a much more drastic effect. Like, so this one will transform you into an enemy that's in the game and you get a different move set. Kind of interesting stuff like that. We have the directionals, the purples, like I just mentioned. Some of these are 1 cost. Like there would be an MP cost per, and then some of them, like these, so 40, 40, and then you'll have an MP cost per second. Special note about these guys, when you have a per second cost, you actually don't lose MP for the whole thing if you don't hold it for a whole second. So you can see there I'm holding it, my MP is going down. And Miriam, our main character here, she actually naturally regenerates MP. This is a little bit faster than you would for other reasons we'll get to in just a moment, but just to show you an example here. But if you just tap the button, you can see it only starts to drain for basically the amount of frames you hold the button down. And you can kind of use this to save a lot of MP and use the directional shards to do damage to enemies, especially if the rate at which the shards do their thing is quicker, because some are quicker than others. So this beam, for example, hits enemies over and over faster than some of the other beams in the game. Okay. And let's go right back real quick. Passive. These are the yellow shards. They do exactly what they say. They give you some kind of passive boost, like it's a stat. This one shows like hidden walls and stuff, and also will auto collect items depending on like how high you can upgrade that. These are the greens, the familiars. There's only 6 of them. There may be more depending on what DLC you have, but they have a pet that follows you around. You can see that little silver knight floating around with me. He'll help me. He'll block attacks. He'll attack guys and stuff like that. And then we already mentioned the skill shards over there. So those are white. So that's all your different shards. So these 3 have buttons. These 2 don't need buttons. And then we have some separate commands here. So like double jump, you just press jump up again in the air. High jump is actually not up and jump, because sometimes you'll need the up and jump for something else. But it's actually up and backdash. So this will give you like a rocket jump. You can move left and right while you do this. And then the other ones don't really, and then invert has a command up, down, up, and then jump. And that's why up and jump doesn't do the high jump, is because you need the down, up, jump to flip the world upside down. So all the enemies will stay how they are. Some things will change. Gravity of stuff that Miriam does will alter some of it, and some of it won't. There's some shards that she'll shoot from the ceiling here, but they'll still fall towards the ceiling because they're following regular gravity. So it's a really interesting mechanic. We'll talk about it more when we get to that in a different episode, right? So that's kind of a quick run through of shards. Real quick, we'll just go through the heads up display as well. Let me move myself out of the way of this very important item, which is the mini map. This is just the mini, way to follow along with the map without having to open the big map menu. Once you get used to playing the game, you won't really need to use this, which is why I usually cover it with my cam or whatever. Then you have over here on the left side, we have the health bar in red. We have the mana bar in purple. And when you play various speedrun modes or modes that you can track your speed, you'll have an in-game timer in the bottom left. And then in the bottom right will be like relevant data. So basically, if you encounter an enemy, its name is going to show up in the bottom right. If you get an item drop, that'll also show up in the bottom left. And the timer will be, if you play in a time mode, will be slightly above where that, appeared. And that's basically your whole heads-up display. When you do damage to an enemy, you'll see numbers. 171. When you get hit, you'll see a number in red. There was a 1 there. There is a way to see how much health enemies have without going into a menu. It's a special accessory. But you'll just kind of get used to how much health certain enemies have, and so on. Okay? So, how do you save the game? You find one of these red rooms here on the map, and you sit down on the bench, and you save. Hit yes, you'll save over like this, and that's it. The green on the map are the warp rooms. Those are what you can use to transport around. I'll demonstrate that for you real quick. So once you find this first initial one here, any subsequent one you'll find, you'll be able to travel, and you can kind of just use the D-pad to like navigate through here and select which one you want to go to. Okay? Pretty basic. And then we have other stuff in our menu as well. So we have our inventory. This is where all of our potions, Waystone teleports you back to this area from anywhere in the castle. We have our food items that will restore our health and do some other stuff. We'll talk about food in a different tutorial. We have some other items like this one where one of your companions can use it on your behalf. We have ingredients for making food. We have materials for crafting items or breaking them down. That's what this alkahest item is at the top. This is the item that you have to find to break items down. We have our keys and recipes. So some items will not be available for crafting until you find their recipe out and about. And when they're randomized, this gets even more interesting. The hair apparent is something you can use to change Miriam's hair. It's purely cosmetic. You'll find these littered in chests throughout the game as well. And then you'll find the last tab will be library books. Now, this is a special mechanic we will cover in another tutorial. Normally, in a fresh playthrough, you'll only be able to obtain 3. Once you do a bunch of special conditions in a normal playthrough, you'll be able to take all of them. So that's why I have literally all of them. But normally you'll only be able to have 3, and only 1 at a time. you build up to 3 as you do certain conditions. But this is just basically a rundown of the menu. Now you can see Miriam's stats over there on the left. We have attack and defense, which is just basically what the corresponding stat plus your gear is going to add up to. So we have the 5 basic stats. We have strength, constitution, intelligence, mind, and luck. Strength and constitution are mirrors. So strength is how much physical damage you'll deal. Constitution is how much physical damage you can resist. Int is how much magical damage you're going to deal. Mind is how much magical damage you're going to resist. So they just basically work in tandem. And then when you combine your strength with the attack of your weapon and other items, you get the attack value up there for the stats. You combine con with the defensive items, plus the armor you're wearing, you get the defensive stat up there at the top as well. And lastly, we'll mention luck. Luck has all sorts of various effects, increasing the rate of items to drop for you, although I'd be a very small amount, shards as well. But mostly it impacts how often you're going to critical hit. And it does do that a little bit better than it does for the 2 aforementioned things. If you are familiar with other Castlevania games, Metroidvania games, Igavania games, you'll know the luck stat often does not function. In this game, it does function. It just doesn't function to the rate at which we would like it to function. There's been a lot of research done into this. Shout outs to the Bloodstained community. A lot of data models that were run, and it was basically I wouldn't say proven, because when you're doing data and you don't have the source code, you really can't prove anything per se. But the amount of data that was run and like all the stats, it proved that luck does work. It does increase your chances. It just doesn't increase your chances as much as you would think it would. You know, it's a very small amount. But anything is beneficial when you're looking at random drops, like percentages for something to drop something, right? So then at the very bottom left there, you have the resists. So there's going to be slashing, like piercing, blunt, fire, ice, electric, darkness, light, poison, curse, and petrification, I believe, is how that works. Yeah, I think I said those all in the right order, going from left, right, left, right, left, right, and on down. And then we've got bonus stats on the right. Those are acquired from eating food. Again, we'll talk about that in its own video. And there at the bottom, we have our short description, which kind of gives you an idea of like what each item does. So if you ever forget what something does, you can just come into the menu, hover over it, or even in your equipment menu, same thing, hover over it, and you'll be able to get a description. Now, some of them aren't completely obvious, like this one is Solomon's Ring, completely obvious. A ring that increases how often enemies yield shards. So this increases specifically the shard drop rate of enemies out there, including the stats in the bottom right corner. Jeebel's Glasses, as an example, does not specifically say exactly what it does. Hand Me Down from Johannes, a reminder of the day's loss, and it gives you some stats. But this item, I can tell you about it and spoil it for you a little bit, because you can't get it without doing pretty much everything that there is to do in the entire game, in the base game playthrough. But basically, there's a reason my MP bar is not reducing when I have these on. And that's because that's exactly what it does. It's the best item in the game, because without it, you spend MP. And a lot of times, you're going to have a lot less MP than this, and you're going to be spending a lot more. Okay? So, your condition meter over there on the side, also over here, just as bit reflecting your status ailment. So if you have a status ailment and you don't remember what it does, you can pause and look at the condition. It'll tell you. So if you get poisoned, it'll say poison. If you get cursed, it'll say cursed. If you get stone, it'll be pretty obvious, because you won't be able to move, and you'll physically have a stone animation on you. But you'll be able to tell as well by looking at the condition menu. And then if you have an item that can cleanse that status, like say Stone Thaw, right, or Mythohydrate for poison, you can go ahead and use it. Sure. So that's pretty much it. Just real quick, to go over some of the stuff on the right there, we will cover it in another dedicated video, but max HP, max MP, exactly what you think. They increase your max HP and MP, which you gain by leveling up, and also by finding MP up and HP up items throughout your playthrough. And then EXP gain, exactly, a bonus to EXP gain. And MP quick charge, that's how much more MP you gain over base per second, depending on how high you can boost that. And yeah, that's pretty much everything to do with the basic menu. So you have a function called shortcut, which actually allows you to save a gear set. You can, copy a gear set to this, edit it, whatever, save it, and then paste it onto a slot. And then you can use a button in the game to switch rapidly between sets of gear. Not something you typically see in a speed run, unless of course we're using the glitch that's associated with it. But something that's handy in a normal run, because you can, like save a magic damage set or a physical damage set, or maybe a set that has resists on it, and you can even set the shards as well. But I'm not really going to go much more into that. That's for you to experiment with in your own time. We have the archives menu. This is going to tell you all about story events, any techniques that you've accomplished and learned and all that. There's more than this. Just some of them aren't, but if you do one, like I was mentioning, that quarter circle forward in the first video, katanas have a parry move, so some weapons have a move on every single one. Some of them don't. Some of them it's only by, certain items will have them. Personal data, you'll have all sorts of cool stats in here. The compendium, more information and so on. Alchemy notes, this will be what it takes to craft stuff. So if you don't want to actually go over to the crafting and you just want to look at it while you're out in the field farming something, oh yeah, I need bronze to craft this ammo, or oh yeah, I need gunpowder, to craft this ammo. Let me go find something that has gunpowder. That stuff's in here. All your quests that you pick up are all in here. So if you're out there and you forget, oh, which enemy do I have to kill? Oh yeah, I have to kill 13 Gusians. That's right. You can check this while you're out and about. Items, what they do, obtained by defeating, all that. You can check these, what drops them and stuff. This is a quick way if you want to search by the item and not search through the demon menu. But the demon menu will also have the same thing. So the demon menu, once you defeated an enemy, a lot of these stats will start to fill in. The spawn area where they are, what shard they drop, the percentage, and their item pool. And the drop percentages on that, what level they are, how much XP they give, how much HP they have, their resists. All of this stuff can be obtained by encountering the enemies. We'll often use this in randomizer runs, especially the max cast, to remember what enemies we've defeated, because it's a lot harder to keep track of 106 to 7 enemies as opposed to 29 when you're doing an STS run. And then you've got your completional stats over here as well. And that's basically it for all the menu. Options just gives you all the same options you have on the title screen. You can return to the title screen. And that's pretty much it. So that's all of the interface. You do have a play timer down there. But you will have a timer on screen, like I mentioned, in the bottom left-hand corner if you run any of the modes where the timing is relevant. So Randomizer will have the timer on by default. And real quickly, I'll just show you what that looks like. And I'll show you what you look like at the start of the game, so you're ready for that when you get a game going. As I mentioned in the previous video, this is our normal flag set that we play under. You're going to get a little confirmation. You're going to hit yes, and you'll notice the timer in the bottom left. It will keep track of your best time. A couple things to note about the timer. The timer doesn't know how to deal with lag and transition timing. So if you really want to time yourself, you'll want to run an actual timer. If you're going for world records, if you're doing like regular speedruns, not randomizers. If you're in a race, you'll usually be using a race timer that like a race room will have. That's independent of the game. But it's kind of cool just to have it down there in the bottom corner. And you'll notice that it does not start until you actually take an action. So you have to actually move, press a button, pause, do something, and then the timer will start when you're ready to go. And yeah, that's pretty much everything when it comes to the basic game interface and like all of the stats and kind of explaining what all the menus do and all that. And just one last quick note, if you buy the game on any platform nowadays, you will notice that you have some extra equipment in your menus. And this is basically free DLC. It's Shantae equipment. And when you put all the equipment on, you actually get a stat bonus. There it is. You notice how when I put this on, even though I'm only gaining 1 attack and 1 strength, I get 10 extra strength and 10 extra intelligence. So if you're struggling early, you can always throw this equipment on. This equipment is actually pretty cool. It helps us out in the max chaos mode a lot because when everything's shuffled with everything, there's not a guaranteed weapon or anything useful damage-wise on the boat where you start here. And at the end of the boat, there's a boss. And if you're just attacking with your kicks and stuff like that, you'll do like 2 or 3 damage a hit, and the boss has a lot more health than that. So you'll be there for a long time. So this DLC stuff is pretty cool. One last quick note, there will be a tutorial on all of the equipment, but there are guns in this game. They have various attributes just like any other weapon would. So if you're interested in that, they do exist, and you'll find them, and they have different ammo and all that. Okay, so that's a pretty good place to call this one, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Bloodstained Ritual of the Night Randomizer tutorial series. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure, if you are watching this for the first time and it's still in 2025, check out the last video in this playlist for a special announcement.